Well, that was a long time coming. It's time, everyone. The grand finale. Recap! I had an argument with my crew members. Bradley met fish creatures. Pretty Odd takes place in an alternate universe. I watched Bill God and I wanted to cleanse my eyeball. And Gabe and Crank That Yuri threatened to kill me if I didn't put IDK How in the Panic Verse. We finally made it. It's the 2000s. No more history lessons. This is the part where things get even more, I guess you could say more insane and ridiculous. You thought things couldn't get any more weird? But they will. Much to everyone's dismay. For example, the Panicverse version of Ryan Ross is a vampire. Don't ask why, just run with it. And its roommate is Bradley. And yes, Fever was written by Ryan, but he had a bit of help from Bradley. By the time it was 2005, Ryan left to LA to pursue his music career while Bradley stayed in Vegas. Again, please don't ask. It was just something I made up in my head, sort of. This brings us to Sins, where one day Bradley overhears that the groom's bride, who I'm going to name Cynthia because I don't want to call her the groom's bride this whole time, is cheating on the groom, who again I am going to give the name Rex. Two, and she's going to get married to him despite cheating on him. Bradley decides to crash the wedding by teaming up with Rex's circus family to save him from his cheating fiancée, which once again leads to the events of I Write Sins Not Tragedies, where Bradley exposes Cynthia for being a cheater. Rex is of course upset by this, but continues to support his fiancée despite the fact that she cheated on him, and Bradley flat out said that. It isn't until we realize that Cynthia really has been cheating on Rex, but not with the kind of guy you would think, but it is his brother, Rex's brother. After Bradley shows Rex what's been going on, Rex decides to break up the wedding, despite the fact that he'd be upsetting Cynthia. Rex no longer wants anything to do with her, or his brother, I guess. And then, for some inexplicable reason, someone in the church decides to call the cops, and are now heading towards the church. Why? Why? Bradley realizes that the only way to get out of there and not get caught by the police is to possess Rex and lead the circus back to where they belong.
What? What the fuck?
I'm sorry, what? Yeah, that happened. I guess now we know that the ringleader really is the groom because he's been possessed. One day, Fall Boy came across Bradley, and they decided to sign him after hearing his voice. And just like Ryan, Bradley also decides to move to LA to also pursue a music career. One day, Bradley tries to see the guys in their hometown of Corksville, but discovers that it's been overrun by vampires. And not just any vampires. A gang of vampires known as the Dandies. And of course their leader, Darius. Bradley realized that Fall Out Boy is the last line of defense against the Dandies. And that Pete is still a vampire. Yeah, and he's still a vampire in future Fall Out Boy videos. People just forgot what happened in A Little Less 16 Candles. He's still a vampire. How could everyone forget about that? In 2008, Bradley met Spencer, and the two became roommates. The guys from Fall Out Boy absolutely loved Spencer, and they invited the two of them to parties. Then one day, Pete invited both Bradley and Spencer to go on a cruise and relax. But unfortunately, something went terribly wrong, and the cruise itself began to sink. Luckily, they were both rescued by Patrick, who was out fishing on a fishing boat in the middle of the Pacific, I think. Unfortunately, Pete went missing for days. It wasn't until Bradley and Spencer get a mysterious call from Pete to meet him at the Santa Monica beach. When they got to the beach, all they found was Pete's undead, unconscious body sat on a chair. The two decided to take the unconscious Pete out for some fun. The duo began to have so much fun with each other. Bradley had an idea, and his idea was to break into a high school with Spencer as a prank. Thinking that no one would recognize them because they're wearing suits and sunglasses, they get caught, and they're viciously mauled by students and teachers. Bradley got bored one day and decided to bend the laws of reality so that he and Spencer can live a Broadway fantasy for a day. They really fully embraced Bradley's 19th century style. However, Spencer accidentally traveled back in time to 1907, and maybe Bradley had a time machine or something? I'm not sure. Well, I guess we're going back to the overture again. And trust me, this isn't the last we'll see of the overture. It'll come back later in the video. After all of what happened in the overture, Bradley goes back in time to rescue Spencer. Who knew Spencer can time travel? Spencer at this time finds love and decides that it's time for him to move out. Bradley understands this and lets Spencer go. They have their fun together. Meanwhile, Bradley continues his undead life, still making music. One day, one of Bradley's producers calls him up and tells him that one of his albums had hit #1. Bradley, happy about this, fantasizes about his big achievement. And then he does something super weird and awkward for some reason. He comes out to the public as pansexual. However, he's naked. Before anyone asked, what happened to Fall Out Boy? Weren't they, I don't know, supporting Bradley? Yeah, but at one point they got kidnapped, and then they were tortured, and then Patrick went insane, or maybe brainwashed or something. Then they all died, and then they all came back to life for inexplicable reason. I would make a separate video on Youngblood Chronicles, explaining what might have actually happened. I'm not sure. So yeah, on to the next part. However, not everyone was happy about Bradley's achievement. This is the part where I introduce you to Evil Brendan. Oh no. No. Not Evil Brendan. Yes, Evil Brendan. You see, all Brendan wants is to be #1 in the charts, even if it means murder. It's unclear what Brendan's origin is. It's 2010, and Bradley returns to Vegas for inspiration for his new album. However, while spending the night in a motel in Barstow, he hears an argument between an angry couple. The argument stops, but then, out of nowhere, he hears a blood-curdling scream. Afterwards, Bradley spots a mysterious man, covered in blood, while hiding what looks to be a weapon. He then returns to his room, only to come back outside, dancing aggressively, while shouting to the sky about someone named Miss Jackson. Yes, this is Evil Brendan. Bradley decides to investigate the room that Brendan came out of and discovers a bloodbath. He decides to call the police on Brendan, but before he can confront him, he drives off. Turns out, Evil Brendan discovers a cult in the middle of the desert and decides to confront their leader, a witch. She reads Brendan's mind, and by doing whatever the hell this is, and realizes that he is in fact evil. The witch now knows how dangerous Brendan is. Knowing that she'll be captured, she much rather choose death instead. So she hands Brendan a katana, and he decapitates her and takes her head and returns to the motel. Evil Brendan escaped and was never captured. You may think that Evil Brendan feels remorse for what he has done to his girlfriend. But no, he doesn't. He then decides it's a good idea to break into a museum and steal a powerful and dangerous artifact. The Devil's Key. As soon as he stole the artifact, his house was flooded with ninjas ready to attack him. Then what was the point? Couldn't he have just closed the door like he was supposed to? Otherwise he wouldn't have been robbed. Please. Even though Evil Brendan is getting ready for a date, with the power of the key, Brendan slaughters all the ninjas, each in a creative but brutal fashion. His date finally arrives, but she ultimately defeats him with a bat. Police find evidence that the murders that were committed in Barstow lead back to Evil Brendan. The problem? The bat that hit Brendan hit him in the pericardium. The little line thing near the base of his heart. Not only did the hit knock him out, it also endangered his own life. The hit disrupted his heart rhythms, and possibly even caused hemorrhaging in his arteries. The doctors raced to save Brendan's life, forcing them to perform an open heart surgery on him. Still under the effects of the key, Brendan keeps coming in and out of consciousness. Under morphine, he begins to hallucinate his own funeral, even though he was actually dying. His spirit was headed towards the light, while his body was still on the verge of death. Finally, Brendan's heart gave out, and he died on the operating table. Evil Brendan's spirit finally arrives to the afterlife. And no, not heaven. Just the afterlife. But fate had other ideas for him. Brendan falls from grace and lands himself in hell, where he suffers a fate worse than death. So what is his punishment after all this crap? Body horror. Evil Brendan painfully transforms into a blue gazelle, vampire, glowing-eyed, insane, sadistic demon. Once he enters hell, his spirit tries to escape, which only leads him to this weird-looking illusion thingy canyon, where Brendan is taunted by the spirit of his ex-girlfriend, which he murdered back in Miss Jackson. He finally makes it over the canyon and leaves only to discover that time has passed and that he is now in 2015 and his body is no longer useful, so he tries to travel back to 2013, only he went a little too far and traveled 100 years into the past. Brendan was sorta stuck in 1907. He realized that the only way to get back was to find a new body, so he possessed the nearest body he could find. A ballerina. When her family found out about the possession, they had her chained up in a room where it'll be impossible to find the right key just to free her. It wasn't until Bradley showed up and found the key and freed the ballerina. However, this frightened Bradley, as he couldn't get the image of the ballerina out of his head. Of course, Spencer was there to save him before the ballerina could actually harm him. Fortunately for Brendan, it took 100 years for him to return to our timeline and claim a new body. By the time 2015 rolled around, Eva Brendan had possessed the body of another woman. This time, he decides to go to the nightclub and search for a new host. When he arrives, he finds a doppelganger that looks identical to him. He figures if he can distract his doppelganger, he can quickly take his body and he'll be alive again. So Brendan gets the doppelganger super drunk and then reveals his true form and murders his doppelganger. The next morning, he realizes that it worked and that he looks exactly the same, almost like he never died. Brendan returns to the bar because he's hungry and murders a person because I guess he eats humans now? Evil Brendan begins terrorizing the poor citizens of LA by simply psychologically tormenting them with their worst fears. It gets even worse, by the way, and for some weird, inexplicable reason, like the plot of a weird cult horror movie, Evil Brendan has a cult revolving around him. Oh boy. LA begins to experience a disturbance in their communities as dozens of children are being kidnapped outside the city. Bradley decides to investigate the kidnappings but finds something far worse. They're all being electrocuted. Bradley tries to put an end to this but gets himself caught. Bradley wakes up in a dark room, as all he can see now are these terrifying, glowing yellow eyes and a horrifying, sadistic grin. He's in a basement. He's all alone with a demon. Bradley spent 3 years in a basement, slowly losing his mind. One day, he snapped and made a puppet to keep him from going crazy. The name of this puppet? It's Bebo. And he was really annoying. Bradley brought Bebo to life so that he could have someone to talk to. But one day, Bebo just ran away and went to LA so that he could try to be famous. For some reason. Finally, Bradley managed to find a way out. After 3 years of hell, trapped in a dark basement, evil Brendan escaped being captured by police, and no one has seen him since. Bradley was traumatized for days since he got out. Also, what happened to Ryan? Oh, Ryan is actually fine, I think. Well, he did actually make friends in 2013. He did some other stuff. Oh, and I think he died. I'm not joking. He died. I don't know what happened. His friend Z just drove him in the trunk. I think she brought him to a party, and then everyone else died, except for her, and yet he's still dead. And somehow he came back to life, and then Z is now dead? It's on Christmas Eve, and yeah, that happened. Anyway, Z is dead, and so now he's spent the entire Christmas alone with dead Z. And somehow she also came back to life, which is also weird. So yeah, Ryan is doing good right now. Hopefully. It's 2018, and Bradley tries to get the horrible memory out of his brain. So what does he do? He travels to another dimension. What? Why? After everything he's been through, why would he want to go through another experience of some weird thing that would happen to him? The universe he travels to is nothing but pastel. And no, I'm not making a panic joke. Like nothing rhymes with circus. The universe really is nothing but a pastel universe with pastel colors. It looks like confetti cake or ice cream that is so bright enough that if you step in, it's like I don't know how to explain it. It's like you stepped into a giant candy store where there's nothing but bright colored candies, sweet enough to give you a bunch of sugar combos for 15 years, or a very, very long trip to the dentist. Oh, and he falls in love with a crazy cat lady. Okay, that part's weird. And who would have guessed that okay, and who could have guessed that the crazy cat lady is, well, it's Taylor Swift.
What? What the fuck?
Why? None of this makes any sense to me. What? How? What? Why? Why is this a thing? Crazy cat lady or not? How did this even happen? Okay, before anyone just attacks me in the comment section, No, I am not making fun of Taylor. I am making fun of the idea that these two characters who are from completely different universes that are opposite from each other. Heck, the things don't even match. Could ever fall in love with each other. For all I know, from watching this music video, Taylor Swift's universe looks like someone else's wild daydream, while Bradley's universe is more grounded in reality with some horror and fantasy elements. But alas, it doesn't last long. Bradley then returns to our universe. Bradley tries to figure out what he wants to do for humanity. He tries to get his thoughts right, but no one seems to notice. So he goes into town knowing that if he used his powers, people would notice. So he uses his powers. He climbs up a building, and the next thing you know, he's front page news. Bradley finally finishes his next record, and he invites back Bebo to his next performance. But as usual, Bebo makes a fool of himself, and Bradley is forced to kick him out. Then, suddenly, one day, Bradley gets a call from Disney. They want him to do a song. Bradley jumps to the opportunity and succeeds. What happens next was a bit of a mystery. After that, Bradley hasn't been seen since. Guessing that's the end of this timeline, at least for now. So that's my timeline theory. It was just me rambling about the fact that all the music videos are connected and that it always had a secret story arc, I think. To be clear, this is my personal opinion. What do you guys think? Is the Panaverse real? Am I just crazy? Or do you guys have your own theories on this topic? Well, that just about does it for me. I'm gonna go back to do more emo bands and crack videos. The next one is gonna be Fall Out Boy. Well, that's all I've got for you. Thanks for watching.